Hello, my name is Rebecca DiStefano. I'm an online MBA student at Robert Morris University, and today I'll be discussing the TED Talk by Zeynep Tufekci titled "We're Building a Dystopia Just to Make People Click on Ads." In her TED Talk, she discussed the algorithms and the basis of social media, and the key takeaway for me, the key quote was that you can never be hardcore enough for YouTube. And it speaks to the fact that no matter what you start looking at on these platforms on social media, they will take you somewhere else, and typically to a point that's more extreme and a point that you may not have intended to go to, but that will start either reinforcing or polarizing your view on a certain topic. Other key takeaways were the quote that persuasion architecture is equivalent whether for shoes or politics. So the intent of the algorithms for these platforms is to advertise, to create a better targeted ad for a better audience, use your data to figure out what you would be most likely to purchase and what ad should they show you. But the fact is the exact same type of platform can be used for politics or extremist views. And that's the danger, where you're developing technology, but then basically unleashing it. And in that respect, we're not programming, we're growing machine intelligence. And that's where you're not coding line by line by line exactly what you want the program to do. You're kind of releasing an algorithm to go out and gather all of this data and then make decisions without human supervision. And that's how the content is generated and the ads are generated. And that's the danger of it, the lack of human intervention and decision points for what's being displayed. The other quote was, "Not everyone sees the same information, and this makes public debate impossible." So if the ads are tailored to the individual, the content is also then tailored to the individual, and each individual is seeing their own individual reality rather than everyone operating from the same common basis of facts. And finally, in her conclusions, she stated, the core problem is the structure of the business model, and I'll get into that in the next slide. And then finally, she summed up with a very poignant statement that we need a digital economy where data and attention are not for sale to the highest bidding authoritarian demagogue. And again, something to be cognizant of how we are using this information. So the platforms are developed for advertising, but how are they going to ultimately be used? So being aware of that risk, I think, is really, and addressing that risk is really the takeaway as well. So with respect to the business model, Mark Zuckerberg wrote, it's about a 1,000-word essay called "Understanding Facebook's Business Model," and I pulled a few quotes from it. So the first one is, "Still, some are concerned about the complexity of this model. In an ordinary transaction, you pay a company for a product or service they provide. Here, you get our service for free, and we work separately with advertisers to show you relevant ads." And that's a valid statement about how they create value for themselves and for their clients, the advertisers. So you get the utility of their platform, you can share information, you can connect with friends, but then all of the content that you put on there is then utilized for algorithms to what ads to show you or what content to show you. His second quote, "On Facebook, you have control over what information we use to show you ads, and you can block any advertiser from reaching you." And that's actually a good point. That's a good, valid statement as a safety measure in that platform. But I think it becomes a question of, are ads the actual problem, or is the skewed content the actual problem? So skewing an ad for shoes to different people is not an issue. Skewing the content of the news and current events for different people and how they're seeing that is really the core of the problem. So I think Mark Zuckerberg kind of missed it in his essay that justifies the use of the platform for advertising. Advertising isn't the problem. Data collection and content and individualized content, I think, is more at the core of the problem. So in keeping with this, it's important to discuss, how and why millennials are actually more vulnerable to this technology than other generations. So the millennials have grown up with technology. They're much more comfortable and confident and open to embracing technology as opposed to the older generations. So with that, there may be a sense of inevitability, like your data is ultimately out there anyway. They've never not had a means that their data could be out there. So there may be a lower value on privacy in that respect. And then you can see from the chart that while Gen X and baby boomers may own smartphones and computers, the greatest users of social media are actually the millennials. So in that respect, then they're much more exposed to these algorithms. They're much more exposed to this information, and therefore much more vulnerable to it. So what can be done and how can we protect consumers? I think from the reading this week, the key point there was to develop products and technology with data privacy and security in mind. It needs to be built into the platform, it needs to be integrated with the platform, and it needs to be required. And it actually is as part of the EU directive, although there are no regulations in the US. So Mori et al. Cited to teach your customers. So you need to teach your customer about what your data is being used for, why they should provide it, really a justification for it, and how you're going to use it. And then give them control of their data. Let them choose what and what they will not share. Show them where it's, what it is, what data they are collecting, and allow your customer to have a choice and a say in that. And then deliver in-kind value. If data is a multi-billion-dollar industry, what is the real return on consumers' investment? Why should they share it? I think that these platforms should justify, rather than just saying you're getting a targeted ad, what are you really getting out of this service? And that's a better way to encourage people, or to encourage understanding and support for data sharing, rather than just a fear of it. And then finally, if regulations are put in place, similar to the EU GDPR, they should cover data protection, accountability, and security. And in terms of the EU regulation, the accountability is significant. So fines range from 21 million euro to up to 4% of global revenue. So that's significant, and that's a regulation with teeth. And I think going forward, regulations are going to be important in the United States, because data collection will not be going away. Data collection can enhance customer service and quality of life. There are positives for both the company and the customer. The company can tailor their experiences and tailor their products, and that's valuable. It should be return on investment for them in terms of sales. And customers can get a better experience. So, examples from the reading that where it was positive feedback based on data sharing was Disney's Magic Band Pass, that allows you to, check in, pay for things just from a wristband, and have a place in line, enter and exit the park, get into your hotel room. So it's really, in terms of an efficient use of your time while at Disney, that's something that had really positive feedback. Another company with positive feedback is Apple in terms of privacy. Their privacy and encryption services are better than most others, and currently they're in a bit of a dispute with Facebook, because in the next Apple iOS platform update, there'll be an opt-in requirement for some of the data tracking, and that's data that Facebook actually would utilize, and they're anticipating that most people will not opt in. So it'll be interesting about how that finally works out. And then Netflix for entertainment and Uber for convenience and travel, all are enhanced customer service based on that. And then for quality of life, there's huge implications for healthcare, and how there can be positive benefits from data collection. And then ultimately smart cities for efficient travel, reduced environmental impacts, and targeted development. So, while there are risks associated with this, I think that everything needs to involve, especially in terms of regulation, customer education, and the way we use and are going to utilize these platforms in the future. So thank you for your attention, and here are my list of references and sources for this presentation. Thank you.